Now I would like to introduce our morning sponsor. If you please help me welcome the branch manager of the Scranton and Wilkes-Barre offices of ESSA Bank and Trust, Maria Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Elika Maria Almeida. She's a motivational speaker, life coach, and advocate for women and youth with a mission to help them find and use their voices to create and drive positive change in their communities and the world at large. As a young mom at the age of 18, Elika knew that she would one day be a business owner. In 1999, she realized that goal by launching EA Wedding Planner and Elysian Events, which still thrives. Her love and passion for helping youth comes from her own experiences of not feeling seen or heard. In 2009, Elika co-founded a nonprofit called Youth Infusion, focusing on service learning, social emotional learning, and school-based youth programming, fulfilling her philanthropic heart and commitment to providing youth with a platform to be seen and heard. Her move to the Pocono Mountains from Pennsylvania from New Jersey left Elika looking for employment in the corporate world, while remaining involved with her philanthropic endeavors, and her passion for helping youth and women in business was always at the forefront. A significant life setback put Elika on her current path as a motivational speaker and life coach. In 2019, she thought she was entering the next stage of her corporate career, but was unexpectedly fired. Simultaneously, she suffered the loss of a wonderful young woman and friend to leukemia. It didn't take long to realize it was time for her life to go in a new direction. Being fired at such a critical point in her life was a true blessing in disguise. Throughout her journey of self-reflection, she found consistent love and support through a circle of strong women, much like yourselves. This moment led to her Heal, Empower, and Rise podcast, and her new life goal to use her voice to connect with and support other women. Elika lives in Monroe County, PA, with her summer love, her husband, Jorge. They have 2 grown children, Angelica and Jorge, a strong-willed little Chihuahua, Belle, and a flock of 11 chickens, a personal goal of mine, who brought them so much joy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please help me welcome to the stage, Elika.
All right. So here we go. As I was walking in, I saw all these beautiful, amazing women, and I was like, oh my God, they're all in burnout. So I'm like, yay, yay for me. So I get to be up here on stage and just share my story, and hopefully you'll take some takeaways from it, and you'll appreciate some of the strategies, some of the things that I use to really help me get through my burnout. And I didn't even know I was in burnout, so that's the ironic part. Okay, so I got this great little prompter here, which I love. So hello, my name is Elika, just in case you didn't know. I'm a speaker, and I'm just getting used to using this thing. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, nope. Sorry, guys. Takes some getting used to, it's a fancy clicker. So I am a speaker, life coach, entrepreneur, I'm a mom, I am a philanthropist, and I am so much more, just like all of you here in the audience. You just wear so many hats, and that is ultimately what leads to burnout, is because we're just doing so much. We're just doing so much. So this slide could not fit everything that I'm involved with, and those that know me closely know that I'm involved in a lot of projects. You know, I love my community, and I'm very engaged in advocating for women and really helping women with burnout and with anxiety, and just being there, just lifting women every single day. And I also work very closely with youth, because I think that we need to start early and we need to empower young women. So these are my beautiful parents. My parents got married when they were young. My mom was 16, my dad was 18. They eloped, because back in those days, you know, like it was different culture, and very strict parents. I also grew up in a strict home. I grew up, in an entrepreneur home, so I've always had the heart of an entrepreneur. And eventually, I wound up in the corporate world for necessity purposes, but I've always had the heart of an entrepreneur. And I've had strong values. My mom was a seamstress, worked very hard. My dad was a butcher. He's still a butcher. My mom and dad really taught us, if you work hard, you're going to be successful in life. No matter what, that's what they taught us. We never saw how much they struggled. My siblings and I have 2 siblings. We never saw that they, we were poor. We weren't, not even middle class, but we never saw that. My siblings and I, we never had a clue until we were older that my parents struggled so much and sacrificed so much for us coming to this country. We are Portuguese, and I'm Venezuelan Portuguese. So it was hard. There's a language barrier still today with my parents, and so it hasn't been easy. But I'm not up here to say, oh, it hasn't been easy. I'm just up here to say that I have always been an entrepreneur, and then how did I wind up in the corporate world? My life was a little bit out of necessity. I needed to get stability. So I did wind up in a corporate world, in a corporate job that I actually loved. I loved in the beginning. It was very motivational. I had a great circle of colleagues and friends, and then I really didn't realize that I was in complete stress all the time. I was working crazy amounts of hours, and during this time I had a business as well. So I had an event planning business, and that was also providing that additional revenue that I needed, and the corporate job was also providing the income that I needed to support and contribute to my family and household. But then one day, when I started really to speak up, because while I was in the corporate world, I started to really feel like I needed to speak up about several things that just were not right, and I felt were not right. And because I'm such a philanthropist, I wanted to bring in programming that was more community-minded. And when I began to feel the stress, I asked for help, but there was no help to be found. No one was listening to me. I was screaming for help, and I was denied that help. And here I am telling you that I was fired, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The day I was fired, I sat in front of 3 directors, 2 directors, and one was a general manager. And the words they said, I didn't hear anything else but, we no longer feel confident in your ability to sell our product. I mean, I was bringing in $3 million in sales, so I couldn't understand that. But I left and I said, good luck finding 5 people to fill my position, because that is what it takes to make my job happen. And then it was very satisfying, because now I'll tell you a little later, I meet up with people that I worked with, and they tell me, yes, you were a one-woman show, but 5 people did your job. So it was very gratifying to learn that later on. I was fired in October 2019, and it was on Halloween, and on that day, my best friend's daughter, who's 15 years old, passed away with leukemia. So it was like the worst day of my life. I took a bottle of wine, was home alone, and I cried and cried and cried and cried all night. And when I woke up in the morning, I don't know, there was just this feeling of just a rebirth, like this is a new chapter in your life and you have to move forward. That is resiliency. When you're blindsided and then you have this dramatic change in your life, you wake up the next morning and you're like, this was a blessing in disguise. I have to have a mind shift. And earlier, Jennifer talked about mindfulness. Well, it took a lot of me digging deep and really just digging and doing some shadow work to be able to come to that conclusion that it was a blessing in disguise. So as I move forward in life, and after this, I decided to really focus on, what was it that I was doing that fulfilled me? And I realized I was in complete burnout, so I wasn't really paying attention. I wasn't present in my job, and I was really just, it was damage control after damage control after damage control. Everything was a fire being put out. So here I am in burnout, and I know so many women who are just trying to do it all, and they, there's a saying, I'm in burnout, but are you in true burnout? Do you know when you're in burnout? So what is burnout? It's a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by long-term involvement in emotionally demanding situations, right? So that's the textbook, and it's so spot on. However, this is how I felt, and it's my definition. When the waves are crashing down on you, you're drowning, because that literally was how I was feeling, and you no longer feel like swimming. When you give up, right? And you're like, what's the point? When you feel so paralyzed that even getting up in the morning is hard. There were days that I would get up and I would be physically ill. So my stomach would be turning. I was like, how am I supposed to go to work feeling this way? And then my whole day, I felt paralyzed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. And there was no one out there, while I felt like there was no one out there to help me. How many women feel that way? We feel that way, that there's no hope, when we're in burnout, when we feel like we're so stressed and we're crying for help. Okay, so chronic stress is when you face anything the brain perceives as a threat. Stress is the body's natural response. Like all biological processes, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If we can move all the way through the stress response cycle, we stay healthier and avoid burnout. Okay, so understanding the stress cycle. And there's a lot of information out there. I mean, you can really go into a rabbit hole of Google research. If you go into that, I did when I was feeling it. I wanted to understand burnout better. I wanted to understand what I can do to be healthier. It's a healing process. After you've gone through burnout, you need to allow yourself the time to heal. And I'm not a patient person, so I was like, why am I not getting better? And now I'm 49, and I'm going through a lot of other changes. I don't know if anybody can relate, but there are a lot of changes that women go through as you get older. Perimenopause is one of them, and that's my body. But that combined with constant stress was really something that my body was reacting to. And here I show you the body, the mind, the emotions, and the behavior. So how many of you can relate to a lot of these that are up here on the screen? Like worrying. Who worries? Who doesn't? Who doesn't worry about life, right? And things, and COVID, and, are we in a pandemic? Are we not in a pandemic? A lot of these I was feeling back then, and let's face it, we need to heal, but it takes years to heal after you have been in chronic stress and in burnout. Okay, how many of you feel that you're in stress right now? Oh, okay. And I have to commend you and applaud you for being here at this Empower Conference, because that is a great step. You are mindful, you are thinking about yourself, and you're thinking about self-care, and you're thinking about the things that you do need to counteract what you're feeling. Hello. Sorry about that. So your body, there's headaches. I had migraines, okay? So talk about a scare. I had migraines all the time. I don't have them now, which is a great thing, but I had migraines. I had to go see a specialist to find out why I was having migraines every single day. You know, there was very, very few days that I did not have migraines. And I found out I had a brain aneurysm. So I had a brain aneurysm, and I got the scare of my life, and I thought I was going to die. I didn't understand it. And, you know, further research, I found out that it's very small. We're going to monitor it. You're okay. Calm down. I'm a worrier. So I worried about it for months and months and months. And this was during the pandemic. So, of course, you know, I couldn't get in. So I worried some more. You know, and instead of healing during that time, I was making myself worse. You know, it was stress after stress, just worrying about this, you know, what was not fatal, but I thought I was going to die, you know, with this little microscopic aneurysm in my head. So things like that. I mean, we worry about things all the time, you know, and it's human nature. And as women, we worry about things. You know, I feel like we worry so much about certain things that are not even in our control. So if you think about it that way, there are so many things that are not in our control that we need to just let go and let things happen, you know, because we are not in control of it. And if you know the Serenity Prayer, it's my favorite Serenity Prayer, right? So you have to just understand and live by it. If you know the Serenity Prayer, it's mainly about you know, understanding when you have control over something and being wise enough to know the difference when you don't have control over it. Okay, till this day, I still suffer with skin irritations because your body reacts when you're in stress, right? So. How many people are anxious here? How many people have anxiety? That's so common. Even a lot of men. I mean, there are so many men, like my son is one of them, and he suffers from anxiety. He's anxious all the time. So having control over that, it can be pretty hard to have control over your anxiety, right? So that is chronic stress. When you have that stress all the time and you don't know how to really stop that stress from happening. Okay, so let's deep dive into the stress cycle. I'm going to walk over there so you can see me and this chair. Hello. Okay, so I use this example because it is the negative stress cycle. And I don't know about you, but I've been in this situation many times, not so much now, but when I used to drive, I was a commuter, and I used to drive from New Jersey. When I used to work in New Jersey, also in the corporate world, I would drive to Pennsylvania when I first moved here over 20 years ago, and I was constantly in traffic, so I had lots of road rage. Lots of it. It was a constant stressor. I mean, everything stresses you out nowadays, but this was constantly because I was always in traffic, somewhere in Parsippany, I think. I don't know. And how many of you have been in road rage? Okay, and what do you do? I'm going to tell you a story. Like recently, I was not in it was road rage. It wasn't traffic. So someone cuts me off, gets in front of me, and then I beep, you know, because that's why you have a horn. How many of you use your horn? I used it, and I was like, oh, this thing is rusty. It sounded really funky, right? So, you know, and here I go, and I beeped, and the guy in front of me, I don't know if it was a woman or a man, decides to make me even angrier. So they just put on those brakes and went like 1 mile per hour, you know, while I was behind them being as patient as possible. But it got to me, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm sure this happens to a lot of people, you know, okay, breathe. I'm like, oh my God, watch, you're not reminding me to breathe right now. I need you to remind me to breathe, right? So I did take some deep breaths, and I was like, okay, fine. I didn't put up my middle finger, which was what I wanted to do, but I just kept going, and very, very slowly and patiently, I'm like, God help you, karma, please, karma, hopefully this happens to them, so here I am, being as patient as possible, but we all are in some kind of level of a stress cycle, a negative stress cycle. But how do you tell your body to stop? How do you interrupt that stress cycle so that you're not in that constant chronic stress? So there's a couple of things that I do. So I was telling my good friend Sam earlier that I do physical activity. So of course I'm presenting today. I'm like, oh God, I'm presenting. So even though I get on stage a lot, it's still nerve-wracking. And a lot of people don't know this, but about 5 years ago, so I had a complete fear of being on stage. And 5 years ago, I volunteered to be the Chamber of Commerce, the Pocono Chamber of Commerce Women in Business chairwoman. So that was my solution to overcoming that fear. And that was a big stressor for me until I got more comfortable, right? So one of the things that I do, because I still get that anxiety coming up on stage, is I hop on my Nordic track and I exercise for 45 minutes. That's what I do. It's different for everybody. What is your outlet? What do you do to interrupt your stress cycle when you're in a negative stress cycle? Another thing is creative outlets, right? So I have a lot of friends, my friend Emily over there. We do these power word workshops where we do our power words, we think of our word for the year, and then we make bracelets, right? So it's a creative outlet. We get really crafty, and a lot of people, that's what they do. They have creative outlets. It's something that takes their mind away from the current stress. Laughing, right? Laughing is always great. I don't usually watch TV much, but when I do, it's to watch stand-up comedy because that is kind of, something that you can do. How many of you watch stand-up comedy? You enjoy it? It's great. You're not focused on your worries, anything that's going on that's negative in your life, and you just pay attention to the comedian. Crying, that's what I did when I was fired. I just cried, and it really helped because the next day I was kind of rejuvenated. I was ready to take on the next chapter of my life, and I did a complete mind shift. So crying is also good. Physical affection. Okay, so you're in this road rage, you're in traffic, you get home, your body doesn't know that you are okay. It still thinks you're in this threat, so what do? Physical affection. Hug someone, hug your child, hug your husband, your wife, your partner, hug someone, hug your doggy, hug your chickens. I do hug my chickens. Deep breathing. So deep breathing is great. So like I said, I use my phone. This is the best thing ever. I don't know if anybody uses or tells it to, who here, now be honest, if you have one of these, do you just go silent? No, I don't have time to breathe. Everyone needs to breathe, right? It's just deeper breaths, right? Okay. So don't get stuck in the stress cycle. Break the patterns that avoid burnout. The goal is to move through the complete stress cycle into calm. So does anybody here want to share anything that they do, any tips, anything that they do to get out of that stress cycle if you're in stress? Go ahead.
Sometimes I just get up and go for a walk, and if it's a sunny day, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so nice. Let me have the sun just.
Yeah, that vitamin D, you need it. Yeah, just getting that oxygen. I have had a good friend years ago who would take breaks. Like she was very mindful about, and she was a yoga instructor, obviously, so she knows to do this, right? So she gets out and she just takes in the sun, breathes in the fresh air, and that alone, you don't have to go to a spa to get that self-care and self-love. So breaking the stress cycle and patterns that lead to burnout. So important is to really acknowledge when you're having stress, anxiety, and that stress cycle is full-blown stress cycle, is really acknowledge the symptoms, okay? Examine what is underlying, what is the cause, the underlying cause of what's happening. So for me, never really had the time to, when I was in my corporate job, I felt like I never really had time to even think. It was just go, 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 go. Deadline, 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 deadline. Client needs all the time. Plus the internal, corporate needs, from the departments. So you never really had that time to even think about that. And by the time you were home, by the time you actually got home, all you want to do is just see your bed. You want to take a shower and go to bed. So many of us are in that predicament, and we just don't know how to stop this. And I will share some ways to do that. So you have to develop preventative strategies to counteract your particular pattern of burnout. So one of the patterns that I have that I'm very hyper aware of, and awareness is key. So you have it and you're working on it and you're making progress to make it better, right? So one of them is, my son is 28, my daughter is 30. My daughter just turned 30, and I miss them dearly. They're both in Florida. So one of the things that I'm struggling with is the empty nest syndrome. So my kids are no longer with me. I kept them in the nest as long as I could, but now they're not in the nest anymore, and they're adults, and I have to let them be adults. And so they're in Florida. So what do? I fill those voids with work, project, and I have to be mindful that I have to get things off my plate, not keep adding things to my plate. I think that sometimes there are voids in our lives, and that's why we just keep adding things to do. We just keep piling on those things that we shouldn't be doing. We should be really, living a less stressful life, working smarter, not harder, finding strategies, developing those strategies, and finding that we can say no sometimes and be our authentic selves. I mean, if we're tired and we don't want to do something, we just have to say it. So work-life balance and boundaries. So this is very key. This is so important to have work-life balance. It's hard now, right? Because during COVID-19 and the pandemic, we were all stuck at home. So it was easy to develop different work habits, right? A lot of us were working from home, and there was no time to turn it off. We're constantly on. So it's hard to kind of say, okay, I start at 9 o'clock, I get off at 5 o'clock, and I have to take my break. Maybe during my break, I'll go for a walk. But it's hard. It's just like it all runs together because you're at home. So getting back into the workforce, maybe if you still work from home, developing a strategy so that it's a routine. I was never a routine-oriented type of person. I'm very creative, so I'm a creative, and I like flexibility. I don't like having a boss telling me what to do or micromanaging me. So those kinds of things I know about myself now, and it took a long time to learn those things. So it's really, if you put your mind to it and really do that reflection, and you become more aware of your likes, dislikes, what you're going to tolerate, what you're not going to tolerate, what you're going to say no to, and what you're going to say yes to. I was always the yes ma'am. I was always yes, I want to help people, all of that, right? But we are all like that. We want to help people, right? That's our nature. We just want people to be happy. We want them to like us, you know? So I was that person. But you have to protect your health. And you have to put your family first and be present. You know, that's a lot of my guilt, you know, as my kids were growing up, I wasn't as present as I probably, and I know a lot of parents probably have guilt like this, but yeah, that was something that always affected me, was the fact that I wasn't always present, you know, with my family, and I was always working. So being a good service professional doesn't mean you have to be a servant. You shouldn't be emailing at 11 p.m. every night on a regular basis. And I put that there because that was me. I mean, I was like, this is gonna show that I'm a dedicated employee, and I'm even working on non-work hours, you know, I'm not supposed to be working. Oh, but my cell phone is on the business card and they're paying for my cell phone. So yes, you know, I should be working. I should respond to clients at crazy hours of the night. No, that is not okay. You know, and more we're starting to realize that, because we want to be healthier, we want to be happier. So build in downtime and take your breaks. I used to eat at my desk. You know, how many of you are in that predicament where you're eating at your desk, there's no downtime? Yeah, there's so many of us. It's crazy. I can't even believe it, but it's true. You know, we want to work hard, we want to put our best foot forward, we want to impress the boss, we want to get a raise, we want to get a promotion, right? So those are the reasons we do it. Plus we want to make more money, you know? So make time to recharge your batteries. So how many of you, like, be honest, practice some kind of self-care, take time for yourself to recharge your batteries? Good. Okay. There's some of you, yeah, great. And what does that look like? Is it a walk? Is it a hike? I mean, in this region, I'm so glad that summer's on its way, because I hike a lot and I bike a lot. So, you know, being stuck in the house, and I mean, the winter blues, that is a real thing. It is a real thing. I have winter blues, and if I'm not busy doing something and distracting my mind, those winter blues can get to me and I can fall into a really deep depression over it. So build in downtime and take your breaks. And I know you've probably all heard this. This is not new strategy, new news. What you have to do is actually stop yourself and do it. You know, we don't do it. We hear it all the time, but we don't do it. We don't do it for ourselves. But you probably tell somebody else to do it. You know what you need to do? You need to go get a massage. You know what you need to do? You need to go hiking. You know, I hike. So you have to walk the talk, right? Define what you're willing to give up. So recently I've actually been doing this, you know, where I notice that I'm just keep filling up my plate. So what am I going to remove from my plate, you know, that I can do without? The world is not going to fall apart. I mean, I thought after I left my corporate job, after I was fired, that the world was going to fall apart. Like they were going to fall apart without me. But no, life goes on, you know, and what you think right now is they can't move forward without you. That is not the case, you know. They will move forward without you. The world will still go round and round. So boundaries. So I have extra slides on boundaries because it's so important, because this is something that I always struggled with. I know a lot of women, a lot of people struggle with establishing boundaries and the word no, right? The word no is so powerful. It's a complete sentence. No, you know, and whatever that person is feeling, they'll get over it, you know, and that includes your family. Like, oh, you know, do you want to go here? Do you want to do this? If you know that you're not feeling like you can do that or add anything else to your plate, it's okay to say no. I mean, you could add a couple more words, but nice words to sugarcoat it, but doesn't have to be like, no, you know? So resetting the expectations of colleagues, clients, even family members, for what and how much you are willing to take on, as well as ground rules for working together. Okay, so I know a lot of you are like me, and the word no is really hard, but it has been a life changer for me. I have said no to a lot of things that I feel very close to, that I have been part of for a very long time, but because my career is constantly shifting and growing, I decided to say no to a lot of things that I know other people were hurt because of it, but right now, when I look at those situations, they're doing fine. You know, it's just that initial reaction. So saying no is so empowering and powerful. Your personal limits express your values. They let others know what you care about and how you define and accept an unacceptable behavior. So being authentic, being you, I find that it took me a very long time to get to being honest with myself of what I can handle, being honest with other people. Being authentic is key. So if you know who you truly are, then being authentic is what's going to help you to establish those boundaries and stay out of burnout. Because most of the time, it's because we're saying yes to a lot of things that we probably want to say no to. You know, so understanding that you can say no and establish boundaries and expectations, you're going to be respected for that in the end. Believe me. Okay. I want to see people's reactions to this, because how many of you know what this little squirrel means, right? Squirrel, squirrel. I'm like that doggy going after the squirrel. Like, things distract me all the time. So what do I do to keep centered and focused? And do you all know the Karate Kid? Okay, so that part where Mr. Miyagi says, "Focus, Daniel-san," right? So as I was putting my presentation together, I went on Google and I was like, okay, I need to get, you know, a picture for the focus Daniel-san part, because this is what I do to focus. I say, "Focus, Daniel-san." So I'm like, oh, this is very important. I think people will really, you know, resonate, and I think that they'll use this. You know, this is a good takeaway. They're going to say, "Focus, Daniel-san," right? So I go and I do my Google search, and it says, "Focus, Daniel-san." I'm like, huh? All this time I was saying Danielson? What is this? So S-A-N behind, like after a name, is a sign of respect, okay? So I said, oh, great. Okay, focus Elika-san. Focus Elika-san. Now I changed it. I don't say Daniel-san. I say Elika-san, because I have to respect myself and respect who I am so that others can respect me and respect my boundaries, you know, so I don't wind up in burnout. So being grounded and centered, this is what keeps me grounded. It's very simple, but it does. I mean, I talk to myself a lot. How many of you talk to yourself? You answer yourself. I answer myself too. You're not alone. Yeah, so when you talk to yourself, it actually helps. It actually helps when you tell yourself, you know, those positive affirmations, when you say, what are you doing? And you stop yourself from doing something that, you know, is probably going to be harmful to yourself. So focus, Elika-san. So everybody, say your name and say San. Focus. Okay, I just want to embed it in your brain, so next time you're doing something that's causing you stress, that you know to stay grounded and focused, okay? So being grounded and centered is more of an emotionally controlled state, similar to mindfulness, which we just heard about, any of you that attended the previous session. Lots of talking about mindfulness, which is so important. It is a position where you are connected to how you're feeling, truly connected, and you know what you're feeling. what you're thinking, and you feel in control of these thoughts and emotion. Now, there will be situations that you're not going to feel in control of over, and you have to let those waves go, and you have to just ride those waves, right? But there's a lot that we have control over. So keep that in mind. Like, if you have control over a decision, it doesn't matter how someone else is going to react to it. You have to do what's best for you and stay focused. Okay, so I'm a recovering perfectionist. Are we at that meeting? Oh, it's not that meeting, it's about burnout. Okay, so I am a recovering perfectionist, and I still find myself doing it. Like, I'll get like someone's, PowerPoint presentation, or I'll get an email and I find myself editing it. I'm like, what? Stop doing that. Why are you editing this email? Like, I'll find little flaws because I am that way. So wouldn't it be funny if there was like a misspelled word right now? Did it on purpose? No. So I strive for progress now. And even when I feel uncomfortable sending something out, an email, a PowerPoint presentation, I was working on this presentation till the very last minute. So I'm still struggling with it, and a lot of us do. We want to make things as perfect as possible. Sometimes it's not going to be perfect, and we have to be okay with that, because perfectionism causes stress. If you're a perfectionist, you're in stress mode all the time because you can't move forward. So when you're a perfectionist, you just can't move forward with progress, making progress. So strive for progress, not perfection. And one of my favorite, I'm a big Brené Brown fan. How many of you know who she is? She's a motivational speaker. So to be authentic, and this is like, if you really read these words, to be authentic, we must cultivate the courage to be imperfect and vulnerable. We have to believe that we are fundamentally worthy of love and acceptance, just as we are, our authentic selves. People are going to be attracted. It's the law of attraction, right? So people will be attracted to you for who you are. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You don't have to be fake. You're just be yourself, and you're going to attract those people that are supposed to be in your circle. Okay? Just be who you are. I've learned that there's no better way to invite more grace, gratitude, and joy into our lives than to be mindfully practicing authenticity. So when you practice authenticity, and it's not even practicing, you just have to be yourself, right? So if you're being yourself, people are going to either love you or they're going to hate you, right? And then you have to just be okay with what that outcome is. So that is so, and also practice grace, because you're not perfect, right? Nobody is perfect. So one of the things I also talk to myself about is having grace. So when I'm having a bad day and things are just not going my way, I always say, you have to have grace. Elika, just have grace. Today is a bad day. Tomorrow's going to be a better day, right? So just have grace. These are all things that cause stress, right? So, and if you want to break that stress cycle, and if you don't want to wind up in burnout, and feel like life is over, then you have to have grace with yourself. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about self-love, self-care. It's a proactive approach to protecting one's happiness and well-being, especially during stressful times. So, walking, right? Getting some sunshine. Small, simple changes. I go the extreme. Like, I have Fridays and I take the whole Friday off. I'm just like, oh yes, Friday's my day. So I have Friday my day. I go on social media and I hashtag it. I'm like, look at what I'm doing, Friday my day. And I want the world to know that that's my self-care and self-love, whatever that looks like. Sometimes I'm exercising, sometimes I'm going out with girlfriends, I'm making lunch dates, making them go out and have fun with me. So small and simple changes. 15 to 30 minute stretch. Okay, so I, again, talk about my body changes as I get older, and one of the things is a lot of back pain. Like, I get a lot of lower back pain, and I know that I'm not the only one. And one of the things that I started to incorporate into my routine, because again, routines are good, one of the things, and structure is good. So one of the things I started to incorporate is a 15 to 30 minute stretch. The meditation is not going so well, but the stretching is going great. But meditation works for a lot of people. My brain is like, blah, 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 it's talking to me all the time. And I talk to myself, so there's a lot of things talking to me. Walk outside, support systems like this. How many of you have talked to each other? Like, you're just going from one session to the other, right? But there's going to be, I think there's going to be a time where we can do some small group sessions, and we can do some networking and visiting the vendors, get to know one another. You never know. What you're going to find in common just by having a simple conversation. So support systems, women in business. I am an advocate for women in business, and so I'm always networking with women in business and just finding where we have commonality. And that is self-love for me and self-care, because I enjoy talking to other women. Seek out coaches and mentors. I know earlier on the keynote speaker did this little part where she said, what do you want to put out there, to all of you, if you attended the keynote speaker in the breakfast one. She had said, what do you want to put out there? Some women were really like, oh my God, stage fright, but they still got up there and they had the courage. And they said, I want to have a business coach. I want to have a life coach. There were other things that were said, but yes, like, coaches are amazing. Seek out coaches and mentors. I have several. I have a business and leadership coach. I have my own life coach. I'm a life coach, but I need someone. I need others' perspectives, having others' perspectives to keep me going, keep me motivated, keep me happy. Unplug. So it's called Unplug, but I'm going to plug it right now. I am planning retreats. They're called Her Retreats, Heal, Empower, and Rise. And they're very small, cozy retreats. And just like it says, unplug, it is really off the grid, like some deep work off the grid. And I have that, so if anybody's interested, unplugging the unplug. Her podcast, youth-led podcasting, that's something that really helps me. I know you're all thinking now, what's going to help me? Self-love, self-care, right? Something that has helped me go is really having a platform to voice with other women that are going through adversity. So I have my own podcast, and I talk to women that are going through their struggles, and I feel like I'm helping. I love helping women, and they help me heal. So during the pandemic, that's what helped me heal. Was I had a podcast for 2 years. Right now, it's kind of at a standstill, but for 2 years, that's what I was doing, because I wanted to do something. I just didn't want to watch Netflix all day, right? So yeah, that's what helped me heal through when I was fired. Friday My Days. You can hashtag it. I can share Friday My Days. Bike rides. So I have a nonprofit. I do bike rides with youth, Discovery Trail rides, and I feel like doing things with youth and bike riding also helps. And I have my chicas and my Belle, which is my little, very energetic Chihuahua. Okay, so when you show up as your authentic self, you will discover a world of possibilities and opportunities. Now, this is 100% true, because if you are being authentic, and if you're just being true to yourself, and you know what your purpose is, what your values are, you are going to discover so many possibilities. You're not going to be in stress. You're not going to be in burnout. We're all going to have some level of stress, right? So life is stressful and crazy, unless you live in Portugal, where you take 2-hour breaks and you go to the cafe. But we're not in Portugal. You know, I know there's other countries that are a little different, but we were, you know, we live in the US and our lives are stressful personally and professionally. So just be yourself. Okay, so be yourself, love yourself, be authentic. Okay, so now we're at the part with the Q&A, and if you have any questions, you could go on to the Eventi app to ask me any questions. Ask me anything. I'm an open book, okay? And there's also a burnout quiz if you want to take that. It'll, once you take it, there's just a couple of questions. You can see whether you're headed for burnout. You know, if you're truly, I know all of you think you're in burnout, but you might not be. And there's also handouts, top 5 values exercise. So this is more for you. What is your purpose? What is your desire? What do you want in life? Know what your values are, your top 5 values, and live by those values. That's what makes you authentic, when you live by your values. Mine is integrity, honesty. Those are my values. I didn't get further than 2, but I know I have more. I know I have more, but those are the big ones for me, integrity and honesty. So thank you so much, and please take the burnout quiz. I'd love to talk to you after this. Thank you.